Lyra stood quietly inside the wide observation dome, her hands folded behind her back as she watched the human team work below. The dome was made of clear alloy glass, strong enough to survive meteor dust and radiation, yet clear enough to show every detail of the rocky moon outside. Pale light from the distant star washed over the ground, turning the dust silver and the stones dull gray. The moon was silent, empty, and harsh, not a place most species would choose to stand on for long. The humans, however, moved across the surface with steady purpose. Lyra tilted her head slightly as she studied them. She had read many reports about humans before this mission. According to the files, they were clever thinkers and fast learners, but their bodies were considered weak by galactic standards. Their bones were dense but easy to break. Their skin was thin. Their organs were exposed and fragile. Compared to many spacefaring species, humans lacked natural armor, claws, thick hides, or extra limbs. On paper, they looked poorly designed for survival. And yet they were here. The human team had landed only a few hours earlier, setting up scanners and anchor points with calm speed. They wore standard exploration suits, nothing special, nothing heavy. Lyra noticed how often they relied on tools rather than natural strength. They measured, adjusted, checked readings, and spoke to each other through short, clear signals. One human stood out to her more than the others. His name, according to her display, was Ethan. He was not the tallest, nor the strongest looking. His movements were controlled and careful, but not slow. He worked near the edge of a broken ridge, securing a sensor deep into the rock. The terrain there was unstable, full of cracks left behind by ancient impacts. Many species would have avoided that area. Ethan did not. He tested the ground with his boot, adjusted his stance, and continued working. Lyra felt a small pulse of worry. She reminded herself that humans had survived their own world, a place known for violent weather, shifting land, and countless predators. Still, watching him stand so close to danger made her uneasy. Behind her, soft tones echoed in the dome as other observers recorded data. Lyra barely noticed them. Her focus stayed on the surface below. She remembered her first lesson about humans. They are thinkers, her instructor had said. Their minds adapt faster than most. But their bodies are weak. Do not expect endurance. That belief had stayed with her. Even now, she expected something to go wrong. The moon was unforgiving. One mistake could mean injury or worse. Ethan straightened and rolled his shoulders, then looked up briefly toward the dome. Of course, he could not see her through the reflection and distance, but the motion still made Lyra pause. There was no fear in his posture. No hesitation. Just focus. She activated her personal recorder and began to speak softly, documenting her thoughts. The human team shows high coordination, she said. Despite low environmental comfort, stress indicators appear minimal. Her words sounded clinical, but inside, her thoughts were far from calm. The airlock behind her hissed quietly as a door sealed. Someone entered the dome, but Lyra did not turn. She had been assigned as the primary observer for this mission. It was her responsibility to understand the humans, not just record them. Outside, a faint vibration passed through the ground. The sensors detected it instantly. The moon had a weak crust, prone to shifts. The alert lights inside the dome blinked once, then faded. The human team paused. Ethan looked down at the ground beneath his feet. He tapped his boot again, slower this time, then stepped back half a pace. Another human signaled him, pointing to a safer zone. Ethan nodded and began to move his equipment. Lyra let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. They adapt quickly, she murmured to herself. As the humans resumed work, Lyra reviewed her data screen. Heart rate slightly elevated but within normal range. Oxygen use sufficient. No signs of panic. It was strange to her. On similar missions, other species showed clear signs of stress when standing on unstable ground. Humans seemed to accept it as part of the task. Her attention returned to Ethan. He crouched, secured the final lock on the sensor, and stood again. His movements were smooth but not rushed. There was a quiet confidence in the way he worked, as if he trusted himself more than the environment. Lyra wondered where that confidence came from. She knew a little about Earth. It was a world of constant change. Storms, earthquakes, floods, fires. Life there had learned to adapt or disappear. Humans had not only survived but spread across the planet. Perhaps that history had shaped them more than the report suggested. Still, confidence did not protect fragile bones. The human team began to spread out, preparing to map a wider area. Ethan moved toward a narrow path between two raised rock formations. The ground there dipped sharply, forming a shallow ravine filled with loose dust. Lyra frowned. That area is unstable, she said softly, though no one could hear her. The mission data did not forbid exploration there, but it carried risk. Lyra waited for a command to redirect him. None came. Ethan tested the slope with a small probe, then stepped forward. The dust shifted slightly under his weight. He adjusted his stance, spreading his feet, lowering his center of balance. It was not something she had seen many species do instinctively. She leaned closer to the glass. The humans moved with an odd mix of caution and trust. They knew danger existed, yet they did not freeze. They adjusted and continued. Minutes passed. The sensor readings improved. The mission was going well. Lyra began to relax just a little. Then another vibration rolled through the moon. This one was stronger. The alert lights flashed again, brighter this time. The humans froze, listening through their suits. Ethan turned his head, scanning the ridge above him. The ground shifted. A low crack echoed across the surface, sharp and sudden. Dust fell in thin streams from the rocks. "Pull back," someone signaled. Ethan moved instantly, stepping away from the ravine. But the ground beneath him gave way faster than expected. The edge collapsed inward, dropping several inches in a breath. Lyra's breath caught in her chest. Ethan stumbled, catching himself on one knee. His hands slammed into the dust as he fought to keep his balance. For a moment, it looked like he would fall deeper into the ravine. The other humans rushed toward him, careful but fast. Lyra felt her pulse spike. This was the moment she had expected. Fragile body. Harsh world. Ethan pushed himself upright, testing his footing. He raised one hand, signaling the others to slow down. The ground settled, the dust drifting into stillness once more. He was standing. Uninjured as far as Lyra could tell. Her fingers trembled slightly as she recorded the event. "Human response to sudden terrain failure shows rapid correction," she said. Subject maintained balance under unstable conditions. The humans regrouped, moving to safer ground. Ethan dusted off his suit and gave a brief nod to his team, as if the incident was nothing more than a minor delay. Inside the dome, Lyra finally turned away from the glass and leaned against the wall. Her legs felt weak, though she had not moved at all. She tried to slow her breathing. This was only the beginning of the mission, she reminded herself. No one had been hurt. No crisis had occurred. And yet, something had shifted in her understanding. Humans were not careless. They were not fearless. But they faced danger in a way she did not expect. They accepted risk as a normal part of action, not a reason to stop. Lyra looked back at Ethan one more time as he continued working, calm and focused beneath the alien sky. She did not know it yet, but this mission would change everything she believed about humans. And it had only just begun. The warning came too late. Lyra had just stepped out of the transport corridor and onto the open surface platform, her boots touching the moon's ground for the first time. The gravity felt strange but manageable. She stood a short distance behind the human team, observing directly instead of through glass. The air was thin but safe inside her suit. The landscape stretched wide and empty, broken only by sharp rocks and deep cracks. Ethan was closest to her. He had volunteered to guide her across the work zone so she could collect close-range data. He walked a few steps ahead, turning his head now and then to make sure she was keeping up. His movements were relaxed, almost casual, as if this place did not worry him. Lyra tried to copy his steps. The ground looked solid, but she knew better. This moon was old and tired. Its surface hid weak points beneath layers of dust and stone. The scanners had mapped most dangers, but not all. No map was perfect. They were halfway across a narrow stretch when the vibration hit. At first, it felt like nothing more than a faint tremble, a soft shiver through the soles of her boots. Lyra paused, her instincts screaming at her to stop. Before she could speak, the tremble grew stronger. The ground cracked with a sharp, sudden sound. Lyra's eyes widened as the surface beneath them split apart. Dust burst upward, blinding and fast. The solid path vanished in a heartbeat, turning into collapsing stone. She stumbled forward, losing her balance. Ethan reacted without hesitation. He turned, grabbed her shoulder, and shoved her hard to the side, toward solid ground. The force surprised her. She landed roughly but safely, rolling onto her back as the world spun. At the same moment, the ground beneath Ethan collapsed completely. He fell. Lyra heard the impact before she saw it. A dull, heavy sound echoed across the rocks. Ethan hit the lower ledge awkwardly, his body twisting as he landed. His arm struck first, bending at an angle that made Lyra's breath stop. It was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. She scrambled to her knees, staring at him in horror. His arm lay twisted beneath him, bent in a way that no arm should bend. Even through the suit, it was clear something was badly damaged. Lyra froze. Her species did not handle injury well. Broken limbs often led to shock or unconsciousness. Pain responses were immediate and overwhelming. She expected the same from him. She waited for the scream. She waited for him to collapse, to stop moving, to lose awareness. But Ethan did not scream. He sucked in a sharp breath, his body tensing, but no sound came out. His jaw clenched so tightly she could see the muscles in his neck strain. For a few seconds he did not move at all. Lyra's heart raced. "Ethan," she said, her voice shaking. "Do not move. Help is coming." The other humans were already rushing toward them, careful not to step too close to the broken ground. One raised a hand, signaling for medical support. Another scanned the area for further collapse. Ethan lifted his head. "I'm fine," he said, though his voice sounded tight. Lyra stared at him in disbelief. "You are not fine," she said. "Your arm." "I know," he replied. He shifted slightly and Lyra flinched, expecting him to cry out. Instead, he hissed through his teeth, controlling his breathing. His free hand pressed against the ground, steadying himself. Pain readings spiked on Lyra's display. The numbers were alarming. "How are you still conscious?" she whispered. Ethan did not answer. His eyes were focused, sharp, locked on his own injured arm. Sweat formed along his forehead inside the helmet. The human medic reached the edge of the collapse zone. "Ethan, don't move," she ordered. "We're setting anchors." Ethan shook his head slowly. "No time," he said. "Ground's not stable." Another tremor passed through the moon, lighter than before but enough to send dust sliding down the rocks. The ledge beneath Ethan shifted slightly. Lyra felt fear like ice in her chest. He was in danger. If the ledge collapsed again he would fall deeper into the ravine. Rescue would be difficult. Maybe impossible. "Ethan," Lyra said urgently. "Please do not act. Wait." He glanced at her. For just a moment their eyes met. She expected fear in his gaze. Panic. Bang. She saw none of that. She saw determination. "I pushed you far enough," he said quietly. "You're safe. That's what matters." Before anyone could stop him, Ethan began to move. He carefully pulled his injured arm closer to his body. The motion was slow, controlled. Lyra felt sick just watching. The angle was still wrong, unnatural. "What is he doing?" one of the observers whispered over the comm. The medic shouted, "Ethan, stop. You'll make it worse." Ethan closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. Then another. His chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. Lyra realized he was preparing himself, not for rescue but for something else. "No," Lyra said softly. "No, no, no." Ethan spoke through clenched teeth. "I've trained for this." With one sudden, precise movement, he pulled his arm into position. The motion was fast. Too fast. Lyra's world shattered. Her vision blurred as shock hit her all at once. Her legs gave out beneath her and she collapsed onto the ground, her mind unable to process what she had just seen. Pain readings spiked off the scale. Her ears rang. Her breathing turned shallow and uneven. "This is impossible," she thought weakly. No being should be able to do that. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was Ethan slumping back against the rock, breathing hard, but still awake. Still alive. Still conscious. When Lyra opened her eyes again, bright lights filled her vision. The medical bay hummed softly around her. Her body felt heavy, slow to respond. A medic leaned over her. "Easy," he said gently. "You fainted." She tried to sit up, panic flooding her. "Ethan," she said. "Where is Ethan?" "He's stable," the medic replied. "Being treated now." Relief washed over her, followed immediately by confusion and fear. She had seen many injuries in her studies. She had seen broken limbs, crushed shells, torn muscles. But she had never seen anyone face pain like that and remain in control. She turned her head and saw Ethan lying on a nearby medical bed. His arm was secured, supported by advanced braces. His face was pale and his eyes were closed, but his chest rose steadily. He was breathing calmly. "How?" Lyra whispered. The medic followed her gaze. "Humans are different," he said after a pause. Lyra stared at Ethan, her mind replaying the moment over and over. The calm. The focus. The choice. He had been hurt. Badly hurt. And yet, his first action had been to save her. His second had been to survive. Lyra closed her eyes, her hands trembling. She had believed humans were fragile. She was wrong. Very, very wrong. Ethan sat still for a moment after the fall, his back pressed against the cold rock. Dust drifted slowly through the thin air, settling on his suit and visor. The world felt distant, as if sound had been pushed far away. His breathing was loud inside his helmet, sharp at first, then slowly evening out as he forced control over it. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. That was what he had been taught. Pain burned through his arm like fire. Every heartbeat sent a fresh wave through his body. His vision blurred at the edges and dark spots danced in front of his eyes. He knew if he let the pain take over he would pass out. If he passed out here on unstable ground, things would get much worse. So he stayed awake. He shifted slightly, testing his balance. The movement sent another surge of pain through him and his jaw clenched hard. For a second, a low sound escaped his throat, but he cut it off immediately. Across from him, Lyra had pushed herself up onto her knees. She stared at him, frozen, her eyes wide behind her visor. She was not moving. Not speaking. Just watching. The other humans were shouting over the comms. Warnings. Orders. Requests for him to stay still. Ethan heard them, but his focus stayed on one thing. His arm. Was wrong. He did not need scanners or training to know that. The angle was off, the pressure unnatural. Even without looking, his body told him something was out of place. He took another slow breath. "I've dealt with worse," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. The words felt small, but they helped. They reminded him that this was not the first time he had been hurt. Not the first time he had been scared. Pain was familiar. Fear was familiar. Neither meant the end. Lyra's voice came through the comm, thin and shaking. "Ethan, please do not move." He turned his head toward her. The movement made his vision spin for a second, but it cleared. He saw her kneeling on solid ground, safe, exactly where he had pushed her. That mattered. "I'm okay," he said. His voice sounded calm even to his own ears, though his body was screaming. "Just need a second." "That is not okay," Lyra said. "Your arm, your body should not still function." He almost smiled at that, though the expression never reached his face. "That's the thing," he said quietly. "It still does." He adjusted his position, planting his boots more firmly against the rock. Each movement was careful, planned. He did not rush. Rushing led to mistakes. The pain sharpened when he touched his arm with his free hand. His fingers trembled despite his effort to keep them steady. He paused, breathing slowly again, waiting for the wave to pass. The human medic's voice cut through the noise. "Ethan, listen to me. Do not try anything. We are securing the area." Ethan glanced at the cracked ground above him. Small stones were still sliding loose, tapping softly against the rock near his shoulder. He could feel the ledge shift beneath him, just enough to be noticed. "No time," he said. Lyra watched, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might tear free from her chest. She did not understand what he was doing. Every instinct told her that movement meant danger, that pain meant shutdown, that injury meant helplessness. But Ethan was not helpless. He closed his eyes. In his mind he counted his breaths. 1, 2, 3. He focused on the rhythm, on the steady rise and fall of his chest. He blocked out everything else, the voices, the dust, the fear. When he opened his eyes again they were clear. "I'm going to fix it," he said. "No," Lyra whispered. "You cannot." Ethan did not answer her. He shifted his grip, placing his hand carefully where it needed to be. His fingers tightened. His arm shook, not from weakness but from the effort of control. This was the moment. Pain flared white-hot, brighter than anything he had felt in years. His breath caught in his chest and for half a second the world vanished. Then it was done. Ethan gasped, his whole body locking up as the pain peaked and slowly began to fade into something duller, something manageable. He leaned back against the rock, breathing hard, sweat soaking the inside of his suit. He was still awake. Across from him, Lyra's world shattered. Her vision tunneled, the edges darkening as her mind tried and failed to make sense of what she had just seen. Her species did not do this. No species did this. Injury led to collapse. Pain led to loss of control. What Ethan had done broke every rule she knew. Her legs gave out beneath her. She barely felt herself fall. The ground rushed up, then disappeared as darkness closed in. Her last clear thought was simple and filled with fear. This should not be possible. Ethan saw her collapse. "Lyra," he said, forcing himself upright despite the lingering pain. "Lyra." The humans reacted instantly. One rushed to her side, checking her vitals. Another finally reached Ethan, securing a line around his waist to stabilize him. "She's in shock," someone said. Ethan nodded slowly. He understood that word well. As they helped him onto stable ground, his body finally began to shake. Now that the danger had passed, now that Lyra was safe, his control slipped just a little. He focused on breathing again, riding out the last waves. The medic knelt beside him, eyes wide with a mix of concern and disbelief. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. Ethan met her gaze. "I know. But you did it anyway." He gave a tired nod. "Yeah." They moved him carefully onto a stretcher, securing his arm properly this time. As they lifted him, he looked once more at Lyra, lying still but breathing, surrounded by monitors. He hoped she would be okay. He hoped she would understand someday. As the medical bay doors closed behind them, the mission outside fell silent. The rocky moon did not care what had happened. It did not care about pain or courage or shock. But something had changed. Not in the ground. In the way one alien would forever see humans. Lyra woke slowly as if rising from deep water. At first she did not know where she was. Soft light filled her vision, white and calm. A low, steady hum surrounded her, gentle and constant. It took several long breaths before her thoughts began to form clearly. She was in the medical bay. The smell was clean and faint, filled with sterilized air and soft chemical tones. Smooth panels curved along the walls, and quiet machines blinked with slow lights beside her bed. A thin blanket rested over her body, warm and light. Her head ached. She tried to move and felt a slight resistance, not painful, just firm. Sensors rested against her skin, reading her heart rate and breath. She turned her head slightly, memories rushing back all at once. The fall. The sound of breaking ground. Ethan's arm bent the wrong way. The impossible moment that followed. Her chest tightened. "Ethan," she whispered. A voice answered gently. "He is safe." Lyra turned her head toward the sound. A doctor stood nearby, tall and calm, holding a small data pad. His expression was relaxed, reassuring. "You fainted from shock," he said. "Your body reacted strongly to stress. That is normal for your species." She pushed herself up slightly, ignoring the faint dizziness. "Ethan," she repeated. "Where is he?" The doctor gestured to the far side of the bay. Lyra followed the motion with her eyes. Ethan lay on another bed across the room. His arm was secured inside a smooth white brace that hummed softly, adjusting and supporting his bones. His face looked tired but peaceful. His chest rose and fell at an even pace. Alive. Breathing. Lyra felt a strange pressure behind her eyes. Relief washed over her so fast it left her weak. "You said he is safe," she said quietly. "Yes," the doctor replied. "The damage was serious, but human medicine is effective. His bones will heal completely. He will recover." Lyra stared at Ethan, struggling to understand those words. Completely. Recover. For her people, such injuries often meant permanent damage. Sometimes worse. She had seen strong adults lose the use of limbs after far smaller accidents. Yet here was Ethan, resting calmly after something that should have broken him beyond repair. "How long?" she asked. "A few weeks," the doctor said. "Perhaps less." Lyra's breath caught. "Weeks?" The doctor gave a small nod. "Humans heal quickly." She closed her eyes for a moment, her thoughts spinning. Everything she believed felt unstable now, like the cracked ground outside. After a while, the doctor stepped away, leaving her alone with her thoughts and the quiet sounds of the bay. Time passed slowly. Lyra sat up more fully, her strength returning. She studied the machines around her, but her attention kept drifting back to Ethan. Every so often he shifted slightly, his face tightening for a second before relaxing again. Even in rest, his body seemed alert, ready. Eventually his eyes opened. He blinked, adjusting to the light, then noticed her watching him. "Oh," he said softly. "Hey." Her heart skipped. "You are awake." "Yeah," he replied. "Guess so." She hesitated, then swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood. Her steps were slow but steady as she walked toward him. She stopped beside his bed, looking down at him as if he might disappear if she blinked. "You saved me," she said. Ethan frowned slightly. "Anyone would have done the same." "That is not true," Lyra said firmly. "You pushed me away from danger. You took the fall." He shrugged carefully, mindful of his arm. It was the fastest option. She stared at him, struggling to understand how he could speak so lightly about it. "You were badly injured," she said. "Your pain levels were extreme. You should not have remained conscious." Ethan looked at his brace. "Yeah. It hurt." "Hurt?" she repeated. "You experienced trauma that would have shut down most nervous systems." He gave a small, tired smile. "Guess I've got a stubborn one." Lyra fell silent. She remembered the moment clearly. The way he had breathed slowly. The way his hands had stayed steady. The way he had acted not with panic but with purpose. Why? She asked at last. Ethan looked back at her. Why what? Why did you not stop? She said. Why did the pain not stop you? He thought for a moment. His gaze drifted to the ceiling, then back to her. Because stopping wasn't an option, he said simply. She did not understand. Pain is meant to stop us, she said. It protects the body. It warns us, Ethan corrected. But it doesn't always get the final say. She lowered herself into the chair beside his bed, her movements slow. For my people, pain means failure. It means the body has reached its limit. Ethan nodded. For us, it usually means we're close to one. She looked at him sharply. That makes no sense. He chuckled softly, then winced and stopped. Sorry? What I mean is, humans grew up in a rough place. Things went wrong a lot. We got hurt a lot. If we stopped every time something hurt, we wouldn't have survived very long. Lyra listened closely, her mind racing. You train yourselves to ignore pain? She asked. Not ignore, he said. Manage. Understand. Work through it when we have to. She shook her head slowly. That is dangerous. Yeah, he agreed. It is. They sat in silence for a moment, the quiet broken only by the soft hum of machines. Were you afraid? Lyra asked. Ethan considered the question. Yeah, he said honestly. I was. Then how did you act? She pressed. Fear usually freezes us. He shrugged again. Fear doesn't go away. You just do the thing anyway. Her fingers curled against her palm. That answer disturbed her more than anything else he had said. A nurse entered briefly, checked Ethan's readings, then left without comment. Everything appeared stable. Lyra leaned forward slightly. When I woke up, they told me you will fully recover. Ethan nodded. That's what they tell me too. You say that as if you expect it. I do. How? She asked. Your body was damaged. He met her gaze. So was my body before. More than once. She swallowed. And you still recovered. Yeah. The room felt suddenly too small. She thought of her reports. Of her training. Of the careful way the galaxy measured strength and weakness. Humans had been placed neatly into a category. Clever minds, weak bodies. That category no longer fit. How many times? She asked quietly. Ethan looked surprised. How many times what? How many times have you been injured like that? She asked. He hesitated, then shrugged. Enough. That was all he said. Lyra stood slowly, pacing once, then stopping. What you did today, it will change how my people see yours. He raised an eyebrow. Is that good or bad? I do not know yet, she admitted. But it will change. She turned back to him. When I saw you move, when I saw you control the pain, my mind could not accept it. That is why I collapsed. He looked uncomfortable. Sorry about that. She almost laughed, but the sound caught in her throat. You nearly broke your own body, she said. And you apologized to me? Ethan smiled faintly. Seems fair. She studied him carefully. He did not seem proud. He did not seem like he thought he had done something special. To him it had simply been necessary. That realization unsettled her deeply. She took a breath. I need to understand. He nodded. Okay. How did you endure it? She asked. He thought again, then gave a small shrug. Humans don't stop just because it hurts, he said. The words were simple. They echoed in her mind like something heavy dropping into deep water. Lyra sat alone in the quiet report chamber, the soft glow of the screen lighting her face. Outside the wide window, stars drifted slowly past as the station moved through open space. Everything felt calm now, almost peaceful, but her thoughts were heavy and restless. She read the report again. It was her report. Line by line, she had described what she had seen on the rocky moon. The unstable ground. The fall. The injury. The choice Ethan had made. She had removed emotional language as protocol required, but even in plain words, the meaning was clear. Humans were not what the galaxy believed them to be. She paused, her fingers hovering above the input panel. This report would be shared far beyond her department. Scientists, military planners, diplomats, and leaders would read it. Some would doubt it. Some would fear it. Some would try to explain it away. But the truth would remain. They endured. Lyra leaned back and closed her eyes for a moment. The memory returned without effort. Ethan's calm breathing. The steady hands. The way pain had not stopped him. She opened her eyes again and continued writing. Humans were not the strongest species. Many races were larger, heavier, and built for combat. Humans were not the fastest. Others could outrun them, outfly them, outreact them. Humans lacked claws, thick armor, and natural weapons. Yet when faced with pain, fear, and injury they moved forward. That was the difference. When the report was complete, Lyra sent it through the secure channel. The confirmation light blinked once, then went dark. It was done. She sat still for a long time afterward. Days passed. Ethan recovered quickly. Faster than most medical staff expected, even after his injury. He began walking the station halls with his arms still supported but his posture relaxed, his movements confident. Lyra saw him often now, sometimes in the common areas, sometimes near the observation decks. Others noticed him too. Crew members from different species watched him with quiet interest. Some kept their distance. Some asked careful questions. Ethan answered when he could, always simple, never dramatic. It wasn't a big deal, he would say. But Lyra knew better. The response from the wider galaxy came slowly at first, then all at once. Requests for more data arrived. Medical councils asked for human physiology studies. Defense groups asked about pain tolerance and endurance training. Diplomatic circles debated new classifications. The word fragile disappeared from official descriptions. It was replaced with others. Persistent. Adaptive. High endurance. Lyra attended one council session as an observer. She sat quietly as images from the mission played across a massive screen. The moment of the fall was shown again, slowed and analyzed from multiple angles. Gasps echoed through the chamber. One council member spoke softly. He should have lost consciousness. Another replied, he did not. A third asked, is this common among humans? The answer came from a human representative, calm and honest. Common enough. Silence followed. Lyra felt a strange mix of pride and unease. She had not meant to change how the galaxy viewed humanity. She had only meant to tell the truth. But truth had weight, and now it was shifting something much larger than her. Later that cycle, she stood by the observation window again watching the stars. Ethan joined her without announcement, leaning against the railing a short distance away. Busy day? He asked. Yes, she replied. Your species is being discussed by half the galaxy. He gave a small laugh. Sounds about right. She turned to look at him. Do you understand what this means? Sort of, he said. People are rethinking things. Yes, she said. They are reconsidering how dangerous humans might be. He frowned slightly. That wasn't my goal. I know, Lyra said. That is what makes it more unsettling. They stood in silence for a moment. You did not intend to prove anything, she continued. You simply acted. Yeah, he said. Someone needed to. She studied him carefully. Even now, even after everything, he did not seem proud. He did not boast. He did not exaggerate. To him, endurance was normal. That realization stayed with her. As weeks passed, new missions were planned. Humans were invited into roles they had never held before. Exploration teams wanted them for high-risk environments. Emergency units wanted their training methods. Medical researchers wanted to understand how their minds handled pain. Lyra assisted where she could, translating, explaining, answering questions. But she never added more than what she had seen. She did not need to. The truth was strong enough on its own. One evening, she found herself reviewing the original footage again, alone. She watched the moment Ethan sat up, breathing slowly. She watched his steady hands. She watched herself collapse. She did not feel embarrassment anymore. She felt clarity. Her people had evolved to avoid pain, to retreat when injured, to survive by preservation. Humans had evolved differently. They survived by pushing forward even when it hurt. Neither way was wrong. But one was far more dangerous than the galaxy had realized. She saved the footage and closed the file. Later, as the station drifted through quiet space, Lyra recorded a personal note, separate from any official report. Today, she said softly, I understand humans a little better. They are not fearless. They are not invincible. They feel pain deeply. But pain does not command them. They choose their actions even when every signal tells them to stop. She paused. That choice is what makes them powerful. She ended the recording and looked out at the stars again. Somewhere among those distant lights, humanity would continue to grow, to explore, to suffer, and to endure. The galaxy would watch them more carefully now. With caution. With respect. Lyra knew one thing for certain. She would never forget the day she learned what humans truly were. Not fragile. Not weak. But unyielding.